Welcome to Retired Life. Wish you were here, the podcast that celebrates freedom, fun, and figuring out what's next. We're your hosts, Stuart Lee and Kim Lee, and today we're diving into something we all think about a lot: money. But don't worry, this isn't your typical financial snooze fest. I've got a longtime friend joining us today. Charles' mentor, Chuck, a seasoned financial advisor who's been helping people make smart and meaningful decisions for decades. Okay, not that long.
Yeah.
Chuck isn't just a numbers guy, he's about purpose, how to use what you've saved to live the life you've dreamed of. We're talking real talk, fresh takes, and maybe even a few financial myths you'll be glad we bust today.
Well, okay, my first question to you is we're we're talking about retirement. You're getting ready. When do you start thinking about this? I mean, you don't wait till you retire to start thinking about it. You have
No.
to start thinking about it much earlier.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean,
what's the perfect scenario?
the perfect scenario. I've got friends of mine who I've seen make. I've seen it where their parents have made mistakes and they don't have any money, and then their parents implore the child that they've got to start when they're younger and they've got to set money aside because. And I see those individuals dedicated to it because they don't want the result that they see with their parents. So really, the key is you can't bank on the lottery system. You just have to be able to say, look, I'm going to be disciplined and I'm going to save when I'm younger and I'm going to have money when I retire. And the people that do that successfully are the ones that have the ability to sit there and have a vision and basically live to that vision. And they understand what it costs.
And that's really disciplined to do that.
Very disciplined, yeah. And a lot of people are fortunate. They work with companies that pay a pension or the state or the federal government. And there's, they get the ability to sit there and, not have to focus on it as much, but then they still have income and Social Security when they retire. So it's very helpful. And with the fact that everybody's living longer in retirement, it's a real problem. I mean, so an example of some of the stuff that I've seen through my time and just trying to help individuals. It used to be that people would say, "Oh, well, I just want to be sure about my retirement. Well, I'm sure we're going to get to this, but if you buy a CD or you lock into it, let's say you lock into a 5% something, and it pays you 5% guaranteed by the government from that point forward." And let's say you determine, well, look, that $50,000 a year plus my Social Security, that's going to get me where I need to be. And that will work for a period of time, but that 50,000 doesn't change. So if it's a 30-year bond that you lock into at 50,000, that 50,000 will buy you a certain amount of goods on day one. It might be sufficient, but in 30 years, that $50,000 is not going to mean as much.
Exactly. As you stated earlier, we're living longer now.
We are.
So we have to plan for that. And
Yeah.
the increase, nothing stays the same, and cost of living goes up every year.
Yeah, that's why the COLA adjustments that people get with pensions, for the federal government or the state governments, I think they're very helpful to individuals because then they just don't, as inflation hits, they get pay raises. So, it's a big, I mean, it's a really boring subject, but I will say to you that probably the person that I would talk to that influenced me probably more than anybody else about retirement was my mom when I was about 15 years old. And she said, boy, everybody tries to make this subject so difficult. And it's just retirement. It's not that difficult. And I said, well, what do you mean it's not that difficult? There's all these things that can happen, all that could go. And she basically just said, well, look, if you want to make it simple, if you look at a blue chip company of some sort that pays a 3% dividend, and if they raise their dividend every year, and if the company's a really solid company, well, if you can live on the 3%, then you're set for the rest of your life because they're going to raise the dividend. And I said, well, that really does sound really, and now it's not that simple, but it is, it's pretty close to that simple.
Well, and the cost of living is never that low. So
No, exactly.
you
right.
have to factor all that in.
And especially today.
So when when you're saving, do you need to know kind of what you're going to spend it on? So like, I may want to live in a community that has all these, but somebody else may want to live like in a small apartment. Or so, how do you tell people when you're advising them? What do you tell them to figure out?
So it's a great example. What we do, what I when we to think about things like retirement, it's basically what I recognize is it's a vision, and it's your vision, and all I'm trying to do is understand it and then quantify it. So a retirement for one person is not the same as a retirement for another person. So somebody would say, well, look, my retirement vision would be private jets, helicopters. I want a helicopter pad in my backyard. And if they didn't have it, they wouldn't think of their retirement as successful. Another person would say, well, look, you know what? If I could buy my groceries and I could stay in my place, and I have a small house, I'm extremely happy with what I've got. So whether it's golf or what I try to do is to basically really understand the vision, quantify what the cost of the vision is, and then what we do is just try to back into it and say, well, is there enough there that we can, and then the difficulty, there's a lot of difficulties that pop up, but health being one, families, there are things that are going to pop up that we'll talk about here in a minute. But the idea is that to really understand what that person's vision is of retirement, and then try to work towards
meet
that.
their expectations.
Right, and let them know if it's, you got to be honest as early as possible with people. Because if you're honest with somebody that's able to, and I don't think a 20-year-old is going to be able to articulate their retirement ideas because it's going to change so much. But as you get to 30, 40, 45, 50, you start to get a picture as to what it is, you want to do. I like to go to the Bahamas occasionally. So I know that, and I know I've got a lot of friends that have expensive tastes, and I like to do things with those individuals. And it's a lot of fun. And so I know I'm going to have to work a long time. And I've saved a lot, but anyway, it's different for everybody. So
It's
just
not a
really trying to understand.
One size fits all.
Not at all. Not at all.
There's so many derailments that could come up too. You're saving for plan A, and then you get divorced, your husband dies. There's so many factors. And
Health gets.
then you've got to have a plan B or a plan C, especially health. How many people do we know? And we know some people that's health destroyed their savings.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I've seen, and we save the money. What I try to say to people is that it's basically you're checking boxes as you look at your goals, and if you're able to basically check a box that's called the financial check, and that what's done, you got a lot of those stresses, and some of the stresses are much more concerning than finances. So, if I got all the money in the world and I'm sick and I'm going to die, well, I've got more stress on me than, so again, you're just trying to check boxes. So if you're healthy, that's great, because that's probably the most important thing. Then you go from there. If your finances are in order, everything looks great. Well, that's terrific. Then, you could have stress in the marriage. You could have stress with family. You could have stress with, stresses come in all different shapes and sizes. So you just have to try to quantify for it and make sure they're going to be okay.
And this is something you just don't set and forget. You have to stay on top of it and visit it and revisit it.
Yeah.
And readjust.
I think some of the biggest things that people don't anticipate are things like family. I try to explain to people that I think I'm at the age where I'm the first group that basically, has been, I have expenses associated with me and my family, and my kids are now into their 20s. They're all working. Yet, it's me that pays the Netflix. I pay for the YouTube account. I pay for the cell phones. And I sit there and I think about, again, my mother saying to me when I graduated college, and I said, well, what happens with my my monthly stipend that you're going to give me, my allowance. What happens now and she said, well, that's great. I'm happy you brought that up because it's over. And when it was over, I mean, it wasn't a matter of, okay, she's paying my utility. She was paying my phone. She was paying something.
It's not.
It was just over.
Yeah. We stop today and tomorrow you
Yes.
start.
But all of a sudden, you get the family plan with your cell phone, and we just have been paying it forever. And next thing you know, your kids are on the family plan. They're still on the family plan. And my kids don't know what a cell phone bill is. So it's amazing to me that.
I want to show you this piece of paper.
Yes, and YouTube TV is awesome. I probably shouldn't endorse them, but long story short is that I think me and my kids, I get 5 people that I'm able to put on that. I mean, once I was able to cut the cord.
There is a point where you can cut them off. I don't know what everybody's got different points. Having a great job and being secure, then you look at them and go, the phone, you're taking over. This is it.
You're right. I should do it. I should probably already have done it.
But what's a financial move you often recommend that surprises people?
So, I get a lot of things from the people I work with, the people around me. So, what I've learned, and I know this to be true, is that when you retire, you've got 3 different stages, in my opinion. And this is actually from a friend of mine, but when you first retire, he basically calls that the go-go years. And that's when you want to go and you want to travel, you want to do fun things. So you got the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And
okay, that is good.
Yeah, it is good. That's the best way to articulate it, because I've just seeing how it works, I've actually had conversations with people that said, look, please take your family to Hawaii. Take everybody. Do something fun, enjoy. And I don't want to go to Hawaii. And I'm like, all right, well, please do something. Is there a pillow I can have shipped to you? Those are great conversations to have, because those individuals are going to wind up, having more money than they need. That's much better than giving the phone call that says, hey, this thing's being driven to zero. It could be those are difficult conversations. But the earlier you have those conversations with people, the more you could do about it. And it's helpful.
And it's always a constant adjusting.
Oh, yeah.
What are some common traps people fall into in their 60s and 70s?
I would say the 2 things. The go-go years get too good, and they want to go a little too crazy with it. I want a boat. Oh, I want a bigger boat. I want.
I have that problem.
Yeah, I've got. Yeah. Anyway, and then the family is another thing too. Family, it's you constantly you think that you're helping people out when in fact you're hurting them. It'd be better if you cut someone off, because then they realize that they had to make it on their own at that point. But when you don't, you're doing it as a favor to them. And in fact, you could be hurting them. You could be hurting their self-image as well. They'd be more successful maybe if they were thrown out and didn't have a safety net, and then they had to make it on their own. And as they would go through the different difficult periods of time and get through them, they would actually gain a little bit of self-image and be more confident moving forward. But if they're not given, if they're given everything, then in fact it's tougher for them to get there.
So do you see that a lot? The failure to launch in?
Yeah, I have seen it. I've seen. Yeah, you see all different things. I've seen families that everybody kind of gets it. Now, here's what I know as fact, though. If you're able to communicate the different teams, so if I'm, if it's football, if it's college football and it's Florida State, Miami, well, you know what? It could be different teams in your own household. Well, who are the teams and who is the coach? And I don't want to consider, someone in my position to be a coach per se, but that's what I would say is most equivalent. And then the team is typically the husband and wife. And it's more difficult when it's just the husband or just the wife, because then it's, this other person is, so now all of a sudden I don't have a team element. But if I can get both of them to sit down and understand the situation, and when the situation's driving towards a zero and it's not going to work, and I can look at them and say, well, look, it's not going to work because I know it's important to you that you're taking care of your kids that are 40 or 30 or whatever, 20, whatever, however old they are. But I can tell you that, you're as a team player, and you two on the same team, and if you see the lines on the chart going to zero, in 12 years, then you as team members, you got to sit there and say, well, this isn't a good idea. This isn't a good result. So if there's a problem there, the idea is you recognize it, and then you can get other team players too. So, and what I can tell you is your kids don't want that from you as well. So no one wants you to be bankrupt where you look at the kids and say, now you got to take care of me. So the idea of that is that if you're able to understand it as a team yourself, and then you're able to communicate that to maybe sub-team members, which would be your kids, which would be something like, look, the coach just said we're going in a bad direction, and it's because we're spending too much here, here, and here. What you'll find is that maybe that will be enough for the kids to say, look, we're going to be part of your support system because we don't want that for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's telling them they have to step up.
Yeah, telling them they have to step up in a way that they understand and want to step up. Mm-hmm. But telling them, hey, we're just cutting you off it's the way my mom did it, but it's not, I was
not the preferred method.
Not the preferred. No. Actually, you know what? I thought it worked pretty well for me.
It did for me as well.
It scared me.
So what do you think about, so you're seeing that zero. How many people get in this situation? You see them go out and get part-time jobs.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we try to, everybody wants to avoid that. So everybody wants I want for everybody to realize what their vision is. And if their vision is not realistic, I want to be able to sit there and say, okay, well, look, if you can't achieve that, can we alter the vision to be something that is achievable? And we try to do things where we'll quantify it in a way and we allow them to look at it themselves. I mean, really, it's just simple things that people could do on their own. It's understanding what your net worth is. It's understanding what your budget is. I like to say that, if someone were to say to me, hey, look, I'm worth $10 million. Can I retire? It sounds like they can retire, right? And it's an impressive number to a lot of people. A lot of people, it's not enough. But 10 million sounds like a nice number. But, if it takes $5 million a year for you to live, it's 2 years.
You're running out fast.
You're running out fast. So I can articulate that pretty quick, right? Yeah. And then at the same time, they could say, look, I only spend $100,000 a year. Now it's just a matter of being able to understand how they're situated. So if they only spend $100,000 and they're worth $10 million, that's 1%. It's easily quantifiable. And I should be able to say right then, you can retire. And then they'll say, all right, well, that's great because I just paid off the yacht. The yacht's worth $10 million. Send my checks here. I'm like, well, wait a second. All your net worth is in a personal asset. So what we try to do is teach people to delineate between personal assets, the assets that you want to have in retirement, that things like the house, you're going to put your head down someplace, the cars, those things we want to support the personal assets with the working assets. So we like a high ratio of working assets, the 401ks, the savings, compared to the personal assets, which you're trying to support in retirement.
So you're saying you got to get it to where it's easy to get to. The money's...
We got to get it to where the money is coming in, whether it's from where we're able to articulate it and understand and help people understand the way they're situated.
I mean, you don't want it in a yacht. You want it...
I mean, yeah,
well,
you don't
if
want
that's all you got.
If that's all you got, right. If you got a $10 million yacht, then, be worth $50 million.
Might want to get that paddleboard.
Yeah, be worth $50 million and have a lot, yeah, exactly. Sell the yacht, get on the paddleboard.
So for couples, what advice would you give? Like one person's retired and the other person is still working.
I would say,
keep working, keep working,
keep working. Yes. No, what I would say is, and I get the advantage of being able to know you two very well, and knowing that if you're set up, if you were with the military for a long period of time, you get a pension from that point forward. And it's great. Those guys, without them, without them, we'd be speaking German or Japanese, right? So the reality of it is that people do different things. They make different choices, and those choices create income streams from that point forward. So arguably, I'd say that somebody that worked with the military that is getting, 70, 80% of what it is they were making in the military on an annual basis, and probably with the cost of living adjustments, could be making more today than they were when they were actually with the military. Now, the idea of that too is that, I think Stuart told me a story once where he's on a plane, and Stuart was unusually good at what he did. So when he's on a plane and someone sits down next to him that happens to be the CEO of a company called Blackwater, and then they're saying, well, look, Stuart, we could use you over here and we'll pay you $300,000 a year, but that puts you in harm's way again. So it's one of those things where you got to decide the direction you want to go.
Yeah.
So you can meet a really nice girl that's wonderful and did the chili cook-off and then
and then it's happily
live
ever
and then live happily
after.
ever after. They both ways work perfect.
And that's pretty cute. Oh, that's a true story.
It is a true story. Yes, I was there.
I've
for
heard
the
that
meeting.
before.
Yes.
How can people start aligning their spending with their values and not their budgets?
So aligning your spending with your values and budget. So it's difficult. We don't really get into that too much, to be honest with you. What I try to advise when we talk to people about what they do, we just basically say, well, what does this cost? And if you want to give $10,000 a month to a church, well, that's great. It's your money. I don't care what we do with it. I just need to know the dollar figure. So the value system, what I do tell people is that some people don't need to do anything to generate more income or more money, but they need something to do of value. So I will say, well, look, you know what? The hospital has things where they don't pay you, but you can go and you can hold these babies that need to be held. And I think that you'll find it to be valuable. You'll find that you're actually being helpful.
And that's really good. You're not if you're in a small fixed income, which some people are. They live on Social Security, and
Yeah.
so that still gives them the opportunity to give back.
Give back and get out there and be helpful. Yeah, there are a lot of things you could do. I know people doing they're really big with adopting the dogs or being the foster home for dogs.
A lot of people.
Yeah, just
are,
yeah. And I don't believe they get paid for it, but there's value in it. And I think that what we need is, and when we talk about retirement, we talk about behavioral finance. We talk about, what do? You retired. If you're, do you get up every day, look at your spouse and say, all right, well, what do you want to do today? It's, let's get up at 11:30 in the afternoon, in the noon, but just before noon. So I think it's important that you both have a goal, and it's tougher than that if someone passes away, because then you got the single spouse there. And I know of situations where, I've got very social individuals that the spouse passes away, millions of dollars might show up. But if that were to take place, it doesn't mean that person should say, all right, well, because I'm financially able, I should retire. If you are engaged with the people around you, it's a big adjustment behaviorally, on a behavioral basis, to sit there and say, these people that I've affiliated with for the last 30 years, well, I can retire now, so I'm going to retire and cut that off. And I'm going to sit here in an empty house that's dark and too big. Well, that's a very lonely space. So I think finding value in the different areas is a big thing. And we don't, of course, I've never talked to that side of it. I try and help people understand it, and everybody's got to find out what they find is valuable.
Have you ever had to deal with someone that had a retirement plan and then it didn't work out and they had to start a part-time job?
So, again, I can't really get into specific stories about specific individuals, but let's just say that there was an individual that was close and a good friend, and worked at a job that wasn't, I've been to different places where I said, boy, that'd be a tough place to work if I had to go there every day, right? So you could be a bricklayer, you could be a lot of different things that are very difficult jobs, but I mean, that you can get fulfillment from doing it because you're building great things. But there could be difficult jobs that when you sit there and say, look, I've done this for the past 20 years. Do I want to keep doing it? So in that one circumstance, again, at the time I was younger and I only looked really at the numbers. And the individual came in and said, look, I think I want to retire. And I said, well, geez, you can't retire. You're too young to retire. You haven't saved enough. And they said, well, I don't want to retire. I'm gonna do something else. And I said, well, what are you gonna do? I mean, this is, you don't have enough money. And anyway, he said, well, I've got it figured out. I'm gonna go fishing. And I said, you're gonna go fishing? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, you definitely can't retire because the most expensive fish I've ever eaten, I caught. So the idea of retiring fishing was just it kind of blew me away. There's no way you're going to do it.
Did they try?
You could try. So some people are good. Yeah, Brandon. Yeah, your son is good. Anyway.
No, I'm talking about, the person who wanted to retire. That's my son's hobby.
Well,
he do it full time, that's a tough job.
It is a tough job. But again, he's saved enough so that, and he has his own boat at the time. And he let me know that, look, I'm a good fisherman. And he was he made more fishing than he ever did working.
Wow.
And on an annual basis, he was really good. Great guy. He was like he's like a grandfather to my kids and great personal friend over all those years. It was a terrific success story. And I've seen it multiple times since then. I said, well, let's talk about what you're going to do. And then, so what we try to do is say, well, what do you think it'll do on a minimum side, on a median side, and an upper side? What do we think? And you got different things. The economy can come into play, but everybody's goals and vision is going to be different. And if you can afford to do what your passion is or what your hobby is, where someone will pay you to do it, then in fact, maybe you won't work a day in your life because you're just going to enjoy what you do and people will pay you.
We had a person on here that quit his job with a huge corporation as vice president and became a dog trainer, and he loves it.
Yeah.
He loves every day of it. He works at a kennel. I mean, he has the kennel for a hunting preserve.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Five-star one.
Is that, yeah. So you see, I mean, that's building into his vision. And well, how great is that?
It's like one day you're like.
And by the way, that's torture for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So but at the same time, that's what his passion is. So, I'm not much of an artist, but, so to me, if I try to do art to sell it, it would be torture. And
I would be the starving artist.
Yeah, well, no one would buy my art. But the idea of it, I actually have an aunt that's a very famous artist. She actually does very well. So, and we're really proud of her. So it is different, but it took her a long time to get there. And now it's tremendous success right now. So we're really happy that she was able to live her passion.
So what's your take on the idea of legacy planning or giving while living?
Yeah. So again, that gets into other people's visions, right? Mm-hmm. So when someone says, well, I'm a big Florida State fan or, the church so the legacy could be anything. What is the most important thing to you? It could be, so I know people that do it for for children's hospitals or whatever's closest to their heart, and we're all for it. We just try to plug it in, to be honest with you. So that's not something that we advise to, and that's a tough one. But we do say when it's not working, okay, well, here are the things where you told these are your expenses, and people could do this themselves. If these are your expenses, and this is your monthly expense, well, you multiply it by 12 to figure out what the annual expense is. Well, and if we figure out that you got to cut $50,000 of expenses, well, let's just go along the annual and point at things and figure out what you can do and not do. And what's important to you? Well, another example of that is a club membership, like a golf membership.
And some of those get pretty pricey.
Yeah, a client of mine told me that, I went and visited the husband and wife. They were both attorneys, and I was in the husband's office. And And basically, we talked about the club bill, and he said, "Oh, it's about $1,000 a month." And I said, "Oh, okay, that's." And I went to see his wife, who pays the bill, and she said, "That bill has not been $1,000 a month in 20 years." So anyway, but it's the realization that that's why I like to get them together, to be able to sit there and talk it through, and then they figure out. And to be honest with you, I'm sure that they're still members of the club, so it's.
Yeah, but in some cases, you do have to give some things up. I mean, if you want the retirement life of, living like you're on vacation every day, there you might need a smaller house. Or, let's go to a duplex or a little small townhouse, but I can still live that life. I can have the pool right outside, the beach right there. There's
Yeah.
there's a lot of things you can do.
It can be more difficult than people think, though. So right now, you see things. I've seen things where we'll talk to somebody about selling a really nice house in a very nice neighborhood, and they're going to get a large amount of money for the house. And then I say, all right, well, let's downsize. Let's figure out a way to make this work or rent, or figure something out. But when they look to purchase, it could be difficult because what they're willing to purchase, if it's only a small savings, then in fact, why do we even sell the other house? I mean, it winds up being something that you downsize 2,000 square feet and you don't even achieve that much of a savings. It kind of is
you end up
mind-boggling.
spending more money.
Yeah, and you between the commissions and everything else, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to be willing to, and I've talked to people who have done this, sold their big house, got a smaller house, but then you never can tell what's going to occur. At what point is the cost of living going to go so high?
Right.
And then you have to sell again and move into an apartment,
Right.
a one bedroom.
Or the big RV, which is the
hey, those are pretty
talked
expensive.
about that, yeah.
Those RVs are
They can be expensive.
Now, have you ever seen anybody that's getting ready to retire and they go, "Wow, I got this big savings account and I'm going to go out there and spend it all."
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's supposed to be for their retirement. But yet,
You have 1
it's a
year
new
to live.
windfall for
I'm
'em.
spending it all.
So we've got people that when what we'll do, we try to basically communicate on a certain level. And when we articulate it, I think we're able to articulate it in a way where, again, we try to be the two different, like the coach and the team. So I want them. The idea of it is that I tell them I'm like a cheerleader as well as a coach. So I'm rooting for you. I want to cheer for you, but I'm also going to tell you what it is that I think. So when you're there and they say something to that effect, we'll say that sounds terrific. But this is how it's going to affect this. And if it affects this, then in fact, this ratio is messed up. And if I can get you to understand the way we think about retirement, and then we're able to talk, then we're both talking on the same sheet of paper. We're talking about, you've done the spreadsheet with us, and the idea of it is to try to communicate how we're able to create a story for you with numbers so that the story makes sense. And then when you sit there and do something that doesn't make sense, you're actually plugging it in and you have to somehow make sense of something that doesn't make sense. So then I'll sit there and say, okay, well, great. This is what it did to that number. And what does that mean to you? Well, that means if I have to make 25% a year to be able to retire, well, then I probably, I better die soon or something. It's not a pretty picture. So we just try to basically all communicate on the same wavelength. And big decisions, people will sit there and they'll say, look, I want this. I've decided I want to do something that's really unique and it's going to be a big expenditure. It's going to be awesome. I really think I'm going to do it. And we just basically say, all right, well, let's try and understand it. Let's put it down. I think on spreadsheets, so it's helpful to me to do that. And we basically we have them work on the spreadsheet with us, and they're able to see the result right there. And then we have to say, well, if you want to do it, it's right in front of you. Let's go ahead and do it. But it could affect these other things.
So,
Wow.
are there any thoughts on Social Security timing?
Oh, on Social Security timing, that's a tough one. Yeah, so that's one we get a lot. So
I
we
bet.
try to tell people that we want them to get full Social Security, which is 65 and change right now. It's age 65 and going to 67 at some point here soon. But full retirement age, especially if you're bringing in income because of the taxes associated with Social Security, but it's more difficult than that, much more difficult than that. So if you're 62 and you've got a terminal diagnosis from somebody, maybe you should start taking Social Security as soon as you can get it, because maybe you're not going to make it to 65. I don't, so that's the whole point. You're sitting there trying to figure out when somebody is going to pass away. So anybody that says they can tell you exactly what that you should do, well, I'm telling you, at age 63, if they tell you there's no way you should take it, and then you walk out and get hit by a car at age 63, even though you're perfect health, well, maybe you should have taken it. So but I would say to you that we plan on people living. So when we plan on people living, and we most of the time run stuff at full retirement age when we assume that they're going to take Social Security. Now, Social Security, they've got other problems there too, as you guys are well. I mean, a lot of debt that's out there right now, a lot of things that it's very difficult for me to put my arms completely around. Hopeful that they'll figure stuff out. But long story short is that Social Security for you, probably for me, will be what it's supposed to be. For my kids, I don't know. I don't see how it's possible, to be quite honest with you. But I almost feel guilty about that. But Social Security when should I start taking it? It's if you're going to live to age 110, you should start taking it at age 70. I've been in a situation where we've seen somebody that's 72 and they hadn't taken it yet. And we said, oh my goodness, we stopped all meetings, called Social Security, said that we want to go ahead and get as much as we can. They gave them 6 months of it, but you have to take it at age 70. So just so everybody's clear. So if you don't take it at age 70, then that's money that you should have gotten that you probably are not going to get. So once you're 70 and a half, then you're going to start missing months, the way it was written recently anyway. So, but yeah, that's the way I feel about Social Security. So
That's one way to look at it for sure.
No,
Yeah.
that sounds exactly what everybody's saying right now. It's a tough call, and you've got to look at yourself and your own lifestyle. Just make sure you do it by 70.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're climbing cliffs with no
Ropes.
harnesses on, then probably should take it at 62.
Recline.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. What's one financial myth you'd love to see busted forever?
Oh,
Okay, retired.
retired. One financial myth. Well, that's a tough one because I don't know. My mind doesn't think in terms of financial myths. And if I said one, I'd get people that would say, oh, well,
That's
You
not a
told me
myth.
that it was going to work.
yeah.
It's not a
So
myth.
I'm going to leave that one alone. I don't, so, give me a myth that you think that is out there that needs to be debunked. And then that would be easier for me to answer. But it's really difficult. Like people will say, oh, well, how stupid is gold because you have cryptocurrency, stuff like that. Well, I believe gold's important. I believe it's
Sky high right now.
yeah, it's very high right now. It's actually, but I believe different things than other people, and I would have to basically deal with one myth at a time. So that's a little tougher.
So, if you are retired, just from your point of view, or my point of view, you know me, where would you want me to put my money? In a high risk stock or what would you think?
So I think that what you've got to do is plan for a longer life. That's the best
I think so.
solution. So
'Cause-
I think if you did something, I'm not going to try to talk product specific on anything, but I do think that people are going to live longer. And if you're not planning on living longer, and if you're not planning on leaving a legacy, then I think that you're going to more likely to fail. So I'd rather you.
I've seen people that we thought they would not be around after 80 and lived to 90s and bankrupted, basically.
Yeah, if you plan to die, if you think, I get people all the time say, "Well, I'm not going to leave something to anybody anyway, so who cares? I'm gonna." I said, "Well, that's great, but you got to tell me the day that you're going in the grave, because if you don't go in the grave that day, then I don't want you to run out of money. Well, I've got, so it's a very difficult. There's, there are simple things that are out there that I try to get people to understand as far as calculations go, but I believe that if you look at your liquid net worth and you assume a modest rate of return, say below 4%, if you're able to live on that figure plus Social Security plus pension plus, then you'll probably be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be able to also deal with any inflation that we have. But and the rule will deviate from somewhere around there. But but saying 10, 15, 20% is safe. Well, it's safe for somebody that's going to die, but soon. Again, everybody's going to die. But if you're going to die real soon, you can live off pretty much 100%.
Well, thanks, Charlie, for coming in. This is the kind of financial talk that we like, and it's full of. We talked about real life. I mean, people think about this all the time. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? Do I do a small house? Do I keep my big house? Do I need my big house?
Yeah.
I mean, you may be able to keep it, but do you really need it? You could be doing
some of the great stories we have in doing, is being able to sit there and say to somebody that's convinced that they've got to sell their beach house. They've got to, and then we'll say, well, why do you say that? Why do you, based on what you've told us here, you don't necessarily have to. And so what we try to do is like I told you before, that's somebody else's vision. So we want that vision to work out.
Well, if you're listening and feeling a little more equipped or even just more confident, that's the goal. Retirement is about designing a life you love. And with a little planning, a little clarity, and some smart moves, the road ahead can be full of possibilities.
With good friends.
With good friends, exactly right.
And if you're dreaming about your next adventure, check out our Retired Life merchandise. We've got beach bags, travel mugs, comfy tees, and even a 3 on Thursday travel line for your next road trip. It's all at retiredlifewywh.com. Grab something for yourself or your fellow retiree. And remember to subscribe and follow. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.